Okay, the Rambam is now going to list the Mitzvos Asei, and the Rambam is going to do so based on the order of the Sefer that he set up, which is extremely innovative, never existed before. All the other Rishonim and Gainim that wrote Sfarim was either on a subject, so they would be malakit on a subject, or say their HaTorah, like the Chinuch, etc., or even I'll say their Hashas. But the Rambam came up with his own Seder and is going to list the mitzvahs in that order, which means Mada, the mitzvahs that are connected to knowing the Eibishter first, as we'll see inside. Dr. Rambam, Mitzvah Rishon, the first mitzvah I'm going to list is Mitzvah Asei, a positive mitzvah, Leida Sheyashem Alakah, to understand and have it clear that there is a God, Shenemar Anoichi Hashem Alakech, the Eibishter demands us to know that He is the God, your God. Liyachdai, which is to know that He is the only one that exists. Hashem Echad, He's one. La'avai to love Him. Shnemar ba'avtas Hashem L'kecha. L'yirim and to fear Him. Shnemar Hashem L'kecha tira. L'yispal like to daven to Him. Shnemar ba'avadetem as Hashem L'kecha to serve Him. Avoida zuhi tefillah, like the Gemara says. L'davka boy, which means Shnemar uboy sidbak. You should cleave to the Eibishter, right? Which is through the Rambam is going to explain through connecting to Talmidei Chachamim in many ways. L'shava b'shmoit, to swear in the Eibishter's name specifically. Shnemar u'b'shmoit yishabeh. There's all the positive mitzvahs. L'damis b'drachav, to compare ourselves and to align ourselves in His drachim atayvim by Yisharim, in the just, straight, and good ways. The Eibishter's name of Allah b'drachav. L'kadosh shmoit, to sanctify His name. If a person, if there's, even if it's on the expense of his own life, to make sure that it's clear that he raises up the Eibishter. Never been Igdashti b'seichel Yisrael. I'm sanctified by the Yidden. L'krois kriyas ma pamayim chol yom, which is already parenthetically Sefer Ava already. These are the mitzvahs that the Eibishter instilled for loving the Eibishter. It's the next Sefer already. L'krois kriyas ma pamayim chol yom. So you kriyas twice a day. Never the Barata Bam b'shach b'cha u'v'kumecha, when you go to sleep and when you get up. Lil my Torah l'lamda. There's two mitzvahs. There's v'shinantam l'v'nach. You should teach it to your sons, and we know that Elah Talmidim. So it's to learn Torah and to teach it. Liksha tefillin b'roish, start tefillin on our head. Shnamar levayilu tutavas ben echel. Liksha tefillin shel yad. Shnamar kshartim loisay dech. You should tie it as a sign on your hand. Chacham taught us it's on the muscle. Lases tzitzis, to prepare tzitzis. Shnamar ba'asel lahem tzitzis, to remember the mitzvahs. L'kvay mezuzah, to establish a mezuzah, to fix a mezuzah to our doorpost. Shnamar ksaftim on mezuzah bezacha, on the doorpost of your house. Lahakil es ha'am lishmoya Torah b'motzei shvis. And the end of the 7th year, which is Hakel, Shenamar Hakel Sam, gather the nation, and this is to remember and to remind them all the mitzvahs and to renew their commitment to the Eibishter. Lichtav Kol Ish Sefer Torah La'atzmai. Every person should have a Torah written for himself. Shenamar Kisav L'chemes Hashira Azos. You should write down this Shira, which we learn. It's not just referring to Ha'azinu, even though it's written over there, rather for the entire Torah. Lichtav Hamel Sefer Torah La'atzmai Yasser La'achad Kol Adam. The king has to have an additional Sefer Torah. Actually, Shtei Torahs, 2 Torahs, Shenamar V'Kasav Loi Es Mishneh HaTorah, as we know and we explained yesterday. Mishneh means a double portion. So second Torah the king has to have. You test. Levarach achar mazon, to bless after eating. Shenamar v'chalta b'savatam, when you're satiated. V'rachta Hashem l'kech, you should bless God your God. Livnois beis abchir, to build the home that's chosen by the Eibishter. V'asu li migdash, make this a sanctuary for me. Liyira mi bayizet, to fear the house. Shenamar mikdashi tiro. Lishmar bayizet, you have to have guards, and this is out of kavod. Like Buckingham Palace, lahavdil. Shenemar ba'ato b'nacha itach lefnei oyla eidos. You and your children, referring to Aaron and his sons, as well as the Leviim, they should stand guard around the oyla eidos, which is in the future going to be based on Mikdash. Liyas halevi oyla Mikdash. The Levi should also serve in the Mikdash. Shenemar ba'avad halevihu lekadosh hakoyin yada b'raglav shas habayda. He has to sanctify his hands and his feet by washing. Shenemar lekadosh. Shenemar leberachzu Aaron abana, before they start the habayda. The 25th, larach neres b'Mikdash, to prepare and the candles in the base of Mikdash on the menorah. Shneimar Yarach Chayze Aaron Abanav, him and his sons that come after him. Levarach HaKohanim es Yisrael. This is all part of Sefer Ava, Berkas Kohanim, and that they should bless the Yidden. Shneimar Koyse Baruch Hu Bnei Yisrael. This is the way you should bench them in that lashon. Lahazdir Lachem Olabayna Lefnei Hashem Chol Shabbos. In every week they should set up lachem panim before the Eibishter on the shulchan, in the kodesh, Shenamar Mitzat al Shulchan Lachem Panim, which means showbread. That means it has many faces, the way it was folded. Lakter K'teres Pamayim Yoyim, bring incense twice a day. Shenamar Behikta al Aaron K'teres Samen, that Aaron should bring up and smoke the K'teres, the incense. Larich Eish b'mizbeach ha'oila tamid. You have to make sure there's in an orderly way. There's always going to be a continuous fire on the altar. Shenamar Eish tamid tukad al mizbeach. Laharim esadeshin. There's a specific mitzvah called Trum esadeshin, to raise up the ashes. even though they didn't clean it completely, but they would just take some, not symbolically, but for the mitzvah itself, just take a little. To send out those that are impure from the Machna Shechina, which is in the base of Mikdash and Har Bayis, Shehu HaMikdash. Anyone that either has leprosy or has zav, the seminal discharge, not connected to mitzvah, or anyone that's impure. To give special honor to Aaron and his sons, like Dima, and to Aaron and his sons, like Dima, l'chol davar shebekdusha, and for anything in kedusha as well, not just regular honor. You should give him that honor and sanctify him that way. Lamed Gimel, li yois hakayanim loivshim. The big dekuna, they must be wearing in the time of service the clothing of the kain. Shenamar basisa big dekodesh. Laadad losses aron al kasser should be carried specifically on the shoulders. Nice when they carry. Shenamar bakas of yisod should be carried by shoulder. Limsha kain and to anoint the great the high priest umalachim and as well as kings b'shem and mishcha with the special shem and mishcha that was mixed with spices. Shenamar b'shem and mishcha's kodesh yiyah. Lamed vav liyas hakainim oivim migdash mishmaris. They should be set up in shifts. And in Yamim Tovim, all the shifts are equal and they all work together and they all split the Lachem Apanim equally, etc. Then they split. Now, that even though Kohanim are not allowed to become impure generally, they do become tamei to their close relatives, and they mourn them as every other Yid would. Because they are commanded as a positive commandment, as these are all Mitzvos Asei, to mourn their dead as well, their close relatives. He should become tamei. Lias Kohen Gadol nois psula. Kohen Gadol has to marry specifically a virgin, not a woman that was married already. Shenamar v'hu isha b'psuleha yikach specifically. Lamed test lahakriv tmidim b'chol yom to offer the twice a day the carbon tamei, the continuous carbon of the sheep. Twice a day there was this burnt offering, and it's continuous every day. There was a meal offering that the Kohen Gadol would bring specifically every day. Is that carbon arav? You get half in the morning, half in the afternoon. Carbon acher b'chol Shabbos. Every Shabbos they would add a specific carbon, which is called Musaf Shabbos. That's why we daven Phil's Musaf, and it's Yom HaShabbos Shnei Kvas, and they bring 2 sheep. Membeis carbon b'chol Rosh Chodesh. Every Rosh Chodesh there's a specific Musaf. Shenamar b'Rosh Chodshechem takrivu. On the first of the month you should be makriv. Lohoisiv carbon b'chag Pesach, the Musaf b'chag Pesach. Shenamar shivas yamim takrivu isha l'Hashem. You should offer a fire offering to the Eibishter. Memdalad lahakriv minchas o'omer, which is the second day of Pesach, and they brought the Omer offering from barley. Mimachas rishon shel Pesach im kebas together with one sheep. Shenamar v'aviyosim is Omer. Lahoisiv carbon b'yom atzeres on Shavuos, the Musaf of Shavuos. Shenamar u'b'yom bikurim, which is referring to Shavuos. That's when it's right. The craft them oil you should offer a burnt offering. They should bring the 2 breads on Shavuos, with the musafim that are brought because of the bread, and the Rambam is going to explain at length what it tells us, the fact that the musaf of Shavuos is specifically affiliated with the breads that are brought. They have to make a tnufa together. Very interesting. You bring these 2 sheep together with the lechem. They do the tnufa, both of them together. Very interesting. Memzayin. Loisiv carbon b'Rosh Hashanah on the first day of the year. Shenamar u'b'chodesh hashvi b'echad l'chodesh on the first day of the 7th month, referring to Tishrei, the 7th month from Nisan. You should bring its unique carbon. Loisiv carbon b'yom atzayim. In the day of fasting, referring to Yom Kippur, and the 10th of the 7th month, which is Yud Tishrei, which is Yom Kippur. Mem test. There's a specific positive commandment to do the avodas Yom Kippur. Specifically like this, Aaron should be able to come to Kodesh HaKodashim. Me'ez adas b'nei Yisrael. The whole parashas Achrei Mos. Me'ez that he brings the karbanos, etc. V'chol avoda haksuv parashas Achrei Mos on it seder. Nun lahoyisif carbon b'yom Chag HaSukkos. They added a carbon musaf on the Yom Tov Sukkos. Number b'kraftam oila isher ech nechayach. Lahoyisif b'yom carbon b'yom Hashmini Atzeres on the 8th day of the Sukkos Asdol. Sheyom zeh if Atzma is considered a separate Yom Tov. Hence, it has its own musaf and its own chiyuv, its own positive mitzvah. Shnamar b'yom Hashmini Atzeres lachug beregalim. It's a general mitzvah that everybody has to celebrate by bringing a carbon chagiga, lashon chag. And Shnamar Shalosh Regom Tochogli. Leirois Beragom. There's a specific mitzvah to be oil regal, and then they bring also with it a carbon re'iyah. That's Shnamar Shalosh Pam Vashana. Yeirah Kol Schur all the males. L'smoyach non dal. L'smoyach Beragom to rejoice. Shnamar v'samachta b'chagecha. Everybody with in their way, and some called basar b'yayin, which is basar shlomim, etc. Non hey lishchot keves pesach the shech the carbon pesach the sheep shenamar b'shach the oisei kol kal adas yisrael lechol b'sar pesach v'leili chamisha asar. This is already in Sefer Zmanim. Note all these karbanos musafim lechol b'sar HaPesach b'leil chamisha asar b'Nisan on the 15th of Nisan. Shenamar v'achol as abasar b'layla hazeh. They prepare it on our Pesach and they eat it. Last is Pesach Sheni. The second Pesach on Yidal Iyar. If a person missed it, Shenamar b'chodesh hasheni barba asar, referring to Iyar. Non ches lechol Pesach boy. You should eat the carbon Pesach al matzah umrorim yochlu. You should eat it together with the matzah umrorim. Non tes. Two times there's a specific mitzvah to blow with the trumpet. One is in Shas Hatzaros, and the second is over karbanos that you didn't bring. You blow with the trumpets. Nun samach. You can only sacrifice them once they reach the 8th day. It should be complete without a blemish. To add salt on every carbon. On each carbon there has to be salt. There's a mitzvah of how the oil should be done, and it has to be done in exactly that process. If his carbon is an oil, Ram learns it's a mitzvah kalalas. In a specific way, it's not to klal. Kalalas, it wouldn't be considered a mitzvah. Samach dalad, Maisa Chatas had a process of sin offering. Shnamar Zois Teres Chatas. Maisa Asham, the guilt offering is for specific averos. Shnamar Zois Teres Asham. Maisa Zevach Shlamim, the peace offering, which makes peace between the Mizbeach, the Bailam, and the Koyin. That they each get a part. Shnamar Zois Teres Zevach Shlamim. Maisa Mincha, the meal offering. Shnamar V'nefesh Kisakriv Mincha. Lahakriv based in karbanim toba ra. If Beis Din made a mistake and they directed Bnei Yisrael in a way that they were over avera, Shenamar. This is in a specific avera chamura. Shenamar b'im kol adas Yisrael yishku based on the directives of Beis Din. Lahakriv hayachid karban chatas. The private person could bring a sin offering. Imshagu mitzvos asei shechayav lo karas. If he made by the chatas can only be brought if he'd made a mistake. In a loisa say that otherwise he would be that he's chayav ala karas. So namar v'nefesh gizechla b'shgagan was unintentionally. Lahakriv hayachid carbon in nistapik loim chata chet shechayav ala chatas loy chata. There's a specific carbon called asham talui, which is brought if a person is not sure if he transgressed. He has a suffix if he transgressed a chet that you're chayav chatas, or he's not chayav because he wasn't Irish. Namar loyada ve'ashem. If he doesn't know and he's guilty, maybe it's Hashem. He brings the guilt over him. Nikra asham talui that's hanging because it's mechaper on the suffix. Halacha and ayin aleph lahakriv hashoigig b'meila. Someone that brought he was moil behektish by mistake. He didn't know it was shayach hektish, etc. Oyachoyte b'gzela. He sinned by gzela. These are all we say it in the morning, right? Hashem Gzelos, Hashem Me'ilos, Hashem Shivcha Charuf, Hashem Nazir. These are different types and specific types of Hashemas. So we said the Hashem Me'ilos, Hachoyte B'Gzelos, Hashem Gzelos, B'Shivcha Charufa. He was together with a woman, a Shivcha that was Nechrefes La'ish, which is a half a Shivcha, because one, let's say, partner was Meshachar already. He denied having a pikadon, money that he was either safekeeping or that he borrowed. Benishban, he swore falsely. The carbon asham, a guild ordering vizel, nikra asham bade. These are ashamas vadayis. Unlike the carbon toli, the asham toli. Yud ayin beis lahakriv carbon oil of yored, which is for a specific averis that if he's a usher, it goes up to being a behema. If he's an ani, it goes to be a oif, or even Dali dalos could go as low as a sirsa efa of flour. If he doesn't have his hand doesn't have the ability, or vim loy sasik, so they're different. It's called the general din of the carbon oil bearded. Ayin gimel isvadas v'nei Hashem mikol chet sheyasa adam. Person should confess over every sin that he does, b'shas carbon, while they're bringing the carbon shloi b'shas carbon, and also when he repents and does tshuva, shnemar v'isvados chatasam shachatu. There's a positive mitzvah to confess and do tshuva for the chet that a person sinned. Ein daled lahakriv azov carbon achar sheyitar, azov that had a seminal discharge, not in the time that it would naturally occur. so it's considered a sickness, and he has, we learn the din of Shemer Yom Keneged Yom, Shenamar, and so when he completes his Tara process, he brings a carbon, Shenamar, Chiyitar Azav, Lakriv Azav, a carbon Achar Shtitar. When a female has the same Zivus, she also, when she becomes Tahir, she becomes pure, Shenamar, Vim Tara Mezaiva, at that point, it's Shaloi Beis Nidasa, she has Shiva Nakim, etc., then afterwards she brings a carbon. Now, Ayin Vav, Lahakriv Hayoledis, carbon Acher, Achar Shtitar, a born that gave birth. Shenamar Lois Yimei Tara, when she completes her Yimei, her Dam Toyar, then she brings after her, boy or girl, depending on how long. Lahakriv HaMetzoyra carbon Achar Shtitar, a person that had leprosy, when the kindness retire him and the nega goes away, so at that point, Shenamar Ubiyom Hashmini, on the 8th day, then he brings the carbon. La'aser HaBehema, to tie Behema, Shenamar Kol Meiser Bakar B'tzayin, you have to tie your livestock. Lakadesh Pchor, to sanctify the firstborn behema ta'ira la'krivay, and to sacrifice it in the base of Mikdash if it's from a kosher behema ta'ira. Shnamar kol pchor sheyival lifter pchor adam, to redeem a pchor of a person. Shnamar achpod tifta es pchor adam lifter petach hamar, to redeem a firstborn of a donkey. Shnamar petach hamar tifta besed, you only redeem it from the kohen. Larif petach hamar, to kill, to behead the petach hamar, the firstborn of the donkey, if it was not given to the kohen. Shnamar loy sifta, if he doesn't redeem it, he doesn't give it to the kohen, but after you should behead it. Pegimel havi kol karban sheyesh ala adam b'choyvay ben daba b'regel rishon shebagabay. There's a positive mitzvah to bring any carbon that a person either committed to on his own voluntarily, or as what's mandatory, to bring it in the first Yom Tif when it happens. Shenamar basa shama v'avesav shama. Now, pei dalid lahakriv kol karbanos beis abchira. All the karbanos should be brought specifically in the house that was chosen. So the beis hamikdash, Shenamar v'sham daza kol asher anachem tzedakah. Specifically there, you should do all I have commanded. Pei hey leitapa b'avas karbanos mechutz la'aretz lebeis abchira. There's a positive mitzvah that the person, the owner, or the person that committed, should take responsibility, and it's his job to make sure it reaches till the base of Migdash. Shenamar rakah the shachar shiyu and the recha tiso basa, you should carry it and bring it. It's referring to karbanos that were sanctified and consecrated in Chutz La'aretz, that it's the responsibility of the Baal Bayis to bring it and to deal with it. Pei Vav, lifters kadashim balei mumin, to redeem kachim karbanos which became invalid through having a blemish. V'yum mutarim b'achil, at that point they're mutar to be eaten by a regular person. Shnamar rak b'chalavas nafshcha tizbach v'chalta basar. Based on your will, you'll be able to shecht and eat the meat. V'piyash mulamdu, they explain this pasuk to mean she'ena b'daber el b'psulim mukdashim sheipadu, referring to karbanos that they became invalid through having a psul, through having a mum, and they should be redeemed. If you swapped, if a person decided, I want this sheep, he swaps it for a different sheep, let me give a different one to the Eibusher instead of this, they both become kodesh. So the tmura, the one that you're swapping, becomes kodesh. Number the initial carbon that was consecrated, as well as the one you're trying to flip it with, both become kodesh. It's a positive mitzvah for the kohenim. After they're makter, the koimitz on the mizbeach, the 3-finger clench on the mizbeach. So remember, the positive mitzvah for the koinim to eat the remainder of the meat of the chatas, the sin offering, the asham, the guilt offering. That through that they're going to be the Baal Bayis, the owners, will be atoned for. To burn heilige flesh if it became defiled. If it touched anything that's impure, should not be eaten, and a positive commandment, but it should be burnt in fire. Now, obviously, just to point out, we're going to learn the Mitzvos Asei in the list of the Mitzvos Aseis that it says lo yachal. It's for the kohen to eat it, but here's Tzadik Aleph, Lisser if Noiser, to burn the Noiser, which is if it's left after its allotted time. Every carbon has a specific amount of time. The Kachim Kalim, the Kachim Gadashim for a Kohen teeth, Kachim Kalim for or Shlomim for Baal Bayis teeth, Shnei Yom V'Layla Echad, etc. Mashen Kachim Gadashim is Yom V'Layla. Shenamar V'Noisim Imsar Zabach, whatever is left from the meat of the shechting that you shechted, by Yom HaShlishi B'Yisi Sarv, on the third day, it should be burnt in fire. Legadol HaNazir Sa'orei, that a nazir, which means a person that proclaimed himself a nazir and accepted nazir upon himself, he should have his hair grow wild. Should grow wild his hair. The nazir should shave his hair off when he brings his carbon at the completion of his term of Nazirus. Or in the middle of his Nazirus days, if he became Tameh in a complete Tumah that will be Mechayiv and do that. Shnemer v'chiyamos meis, all of etc. Tzadik dal l'kayim adam kol shahidzi b'sfasal. A person should fulfill anything he let out of his lips. Mikarbon or tzedakah, whether it's a carbon or tzedakah that he committed to give in charity. Whatever comes out of your mouth, you should guard and keep and do. Ladun behafen adarim. This is a mitzvah on Chachamim to judge and to deal with cases that people want to annul their vows. Over there. Anyone that touches a dead carcass, he should be tummy. However, in the creepy crawlies like rats and different types of weasels and lizards, they only shmoina. There's only specific 8 that are metamesh. Specifically, tzadik ches li is a oichle mistamin, that food can be metamesh. And mikol oichel asher ye achel. And it doesn't mean that it's metame. Over here it means mistamim. Sorry, it means that oichel is mikabel tuma. Oichel cannot be metama adam in the Torah because oichel is a rishon, and a rishon is not metama adam bekedim. So that oichel food can become tummy. Mikol oichel asher yachel. Tzadik tes lias hanida tmeya umetama lachirim. She herself, when she's having menstrual flow, she becomes tmeya and she's metama others as well. Kuf lias hayilad is tmeya kanida. A woman that gave birth is tmeya like a nida. Kuf aleph lias hametzaira. Someone that has leprosy and is proclaimed tame by a kohen, he's tame and a metame. He becomes tame and he's metame others. Li is beged menuga tame metame. If the beged was pronounced as having leprosy, the shear of a shnei grisim and the exact colors, etc., and then it's tame and it's metame as well. Li is bais menuga metame. If the house has tsaras. Li is hazav metame. A person that has hazav is metame. Li is shichva zera, which is when a person has a sabbal mission in its proper time. He's also metame. Li is hazav metame. One that has zivus, it's shaloi beis nidasa, the menstrual flow, she's metame as well. And Leah is Hameis Metama, a person that passed deceased is also Metama. Leah is Mei Nida. Metama, Mei Nida is Meloshin, over here Nida means sprinkling, which is the Mea Mayan that they put in Ephra Chatos, and they mix it, they sprinkle on the person of Metanan Mitumas Meis Bilvad. This only purifies a person from the Tumah of Misa. V'cholei l'adinim shel Tumah is Elu Roiv Mishptei Kol Tumah V'Tumah Mehen Mevur B'Torah Sheb'Ksav, that all these dinim are explained in Torah Sheb'Ksav. Kuf tes. Liz hatara mikol tumas betfil b'mei maker. All mikvah. All other tumas aside from tumas meis, which also has the times that a person has to tevel mikvah, but that he needs the additional sprinkling of the meichat meinida. All the other tumas they're nitar through toivling. Now rachas b'mayim is kol b'saray. Kachlon piyashmo Torah Sheb'Peh taught us that we have by tradition sherichitzu b'mayim shekol gover earl b'm v'asachas. Person is toivel that his whole body is included in the water in one shot. Kuf Yud, Li is Hataram and Atzaras, to become pure and become back to the status of Tahar after having leprosy. Bein Tzaras, Adam, Bein Tzaras, Bais, whether it was through Adam or Bais, his house, or Be'etz Erez, specifically with a cedar tree, Be'ezav and Hisap, Ushni Talas and a red string of wool, Ushnei Siparim, and 2 birds of Mayim Chaim, and lively water, which means from spring. This is the Torah and the order in which the Mitzvah will be tar. Now, he should shave off all his hair. He should be known to everybody by the things that he's going to do. For example, God of you prumen, right? His clothes, he should be ripped. The Roshia Perua should be wild. He shouldn't take a haircut. Balsafam Yata. He covers his head till his mustache in a way that everyone realizes. He should call out, I'm tummy. They all have to notify about themselves. They should process the paraduma, so they should have the ashes ready to have meinida. Etc. That a person that says erki olai, which means he says my value, that's how much I'm going to give. So the Beis Din should judge the amount that the Torah describes exactly based on the age, whether it's a zachar and a keva, and he should give Shnamar Ishki Yafle Nether when he commits to a vow as a vow and gives the Eibishter. That if a person said Erech of a Behema Tmei, he should also give Shnamar Behemet as a Behema. Kuf Tazayin Lias Marach Basic nice and Kerech HaKoyin. So if he's Marach his house, so the Koyin is going to evaluate exactly how much his house is worth, and Shnamar Veishki Yakdish his Basic, and he's going to give that to the Beis HaMikdash. Litein Magdis Adeo Erka Amar B'Torah. This is pre-prescribed in Torah how much the field is worth. Shnamar Ish Mizdeach Osei. You have to give. Now, Lahoisif Hamoil, if someone used Hagdish, stealing, he used misappropriate something that belonged to Hagdish, or he ate Truma, which is Kodesh, and he ate it, he has to add Choimish, a fifth, ala Karen, on the Karen, and, 1 second. Yeah, that means you split all together, turn into 5. And give it back to the kohen or to the Beis HaMikdash. And Namar v'esasher chotam min hakodesh yishalom. Kuf yutesli is neter vay kodesh. That what's in the 4th year. Well, first, he's not putting in the Mitzvos Asei here, but there's a Mitzvos Asei. You're not allowed to eat arla for 3 years. The year afterwards, which is neter vay, the planted on the 4th year, that those payers are kodesh. Namar kol that you praise the Eibishter over them, you bring them into the Beis HaMikdash like Ma'aser Sheni. That we're going to learn. Kuf Chaf, Laniach Peah, to leave on the side of the fields, corners for the Anim. Laniach Leket, which is that if they fell while you were with a sickle harvesting. Laniach Oimer Shikhof, you forgot a bundle. You forgot it in the field, you went already back to where you're gathering, or you moved on to the next part of the project, that has to remain for the Anim. Laniach Oilolis Bekerem, the ones that are not they're not fully developed, there's only a few garginim left that you leave. Lanech peret hakerem. Sorry, the first one is that they didn't oidelos is that they're still a little raw, they're not fully complete. In the same time, and Lanech Peret HaKerem is a few fell. Should lead them for the poor person, for the convert. This is the Pazan Mitzvah. Which are this is referring to the first payers that ripened. You bring them as a gift to the it goes to the kohen. You bring to the Beis HaMikdash. Now Reishis Bikurim at Mascha. The Kochavav Lahafresh Truma Gdoil kohen to give the first Truma raising you give to the kohen. Shnama Reishis Gon Chatitloi, first of your grains you give to him. Lahafresh Ma'aser Dagon Levim. Then afterwards to take from the grain and give a 10% to the Levim. Shnama Chol Ma'aser Aretz. Kuf Chav Ches Lahafresh Ma'aser Sheni Lachal Bal B'Yerushalayim. After you take off Ma'aser Rishon and you take off Truma Gdoila, then you take another 10% of what's left, which is 9% of what there was l'chatchila, and you use that. You bring that up to the Beis HaMikdash, it's Ma'aser Sheni, and you eat it in Yerushalayim. The Bailim eat it. It's not kodesh in that way that it has to go to kohen. Shnamar Asa to Asa Kol Tvos Aracham B'Yesh Molam. The Shezehu Ma'aser Sheni is referring to the second Ma'aser. The Levim have to separate a tenth from their Ma'aser. Shlachim Yisrael. They have to give it to the kohen. Shnamar Ve'el Levim Tidaber. You speak to Levim. Which is 1% from the general crop of what everything produced, because you gave him 10% and you took 1 of that percent. Kuf lamed lahafresh ma'aser ani tachas ma'aser sheni bashlishis ubashishis bashavua, in the series of 7 years, in the cycle of 7 years, on the 3rd and 6th year, instead of taking ma'aser sheni, you take that same second tenth off, but instead of taking it to Yerushalayim as ma'aser sheni, you give it to the ani shenamar miktei shal shalom toitzi kol ma'aser tfuascha. Kuf lamed alf, when you bring the ma'aser l'svadas vidu ma'aser, that on the 4th and 7th year, you have to announce. You have to say the Ma'aser Shenemar B'Amart L'Fnei Hashem B'Kechem B'Arti HaKodesh etc. Kuf Lamed Beis Likros Al Bikurim. You have to. There's a special shevach and praise you say to the Eibishter. Shenemar V'Anisa B'Amart L'Fnei Hashem B'Kechem. You should announce before the Eibishter. Kuf Lamed Gimel Hafresh Challah L'Kohen, to separate Challah for the Kohen. Shenemar Reishis Ar Yisrael. The first and the choice is from the dough. Challah Turim, you should separate as Challah. Lahashmit the Kuf Lamed Daled Lahashmit the Karka, which is that you have to be mafka the karka in the Shemitah year. Kuf lamed hey, lishbus mavayit zaris in the 7th year to stop working in the field. In plowing and harvesting tishbois, you should rest. Kuf lamed vav lekadesh nasa yevel. This is beyond Shemitah, the 49th year. So after the 7 Shemitahs, then you make the next year, the 50th year. Yevel lekadesh nasa yevel shviza. Shemitah, you should sanctify it by resting just as you would in Shemitah. You should sanctify the 50th year. Kuflam Zayin, let's go by shofar b'shnas able to blow the positive mitzvah to blow the shofar on the 50th year to send the slaves free. Shnamar v'avarta shofar trua. Kuflam Ches litin geul la'aretz b'shnas yevel to free, so to speak, the land that goes back to its original owners to make sure we establish the borders which the Eibishter gave to every shevet and goes back to them. Shnamar b'chol la'aretz achuzaschem geul titin la'aretz. In all the land of your inheritance, you should proclaim freedom for the land. Kuflam Tes liz geulas batei arechaimel ad shana. To be able to redeem batei arechaim, if they're in a walled city, they should be able to be redeemed only throughout the year. And the chiddush is that throughout that year you can redeem it right away, but after the year it cannot be redeemed. If he lives in a walled city. It's a passive mitzvah for Beis to count the years. For Shmitim and for Yevels, we'll see Shnamar v'Safard v'Chasheva Shabbos Shanim. You should count them. Kuf Memal v'Lahashmit Ksafim b'Shvis to eliminate and to forgo all chayvus that a person owes. You should Shomet Kol Bal Mashe Yadoi to let go anybody that he would be requesting with his hand. Lin Gois L'Nachri to oppress a guy and to press him to demand back his chayvus. Shnamar as Nachri Tigos. The loisa say of this is you should not do it to a yid. Etc. Kufmem Gimel Litin men aBehema LaKayin Hazroya v'Chayim ba'Akeva to give every time you shall to behema to give the right forearm and the cheek, which includes I think also the tongue, ba'Akeva and the stomach to give to the Kayin. Shnamar Lasan LaKayin Hazroya. Litin Reishis Agis, the first shear when you're shearing your sheep. So you give the first chunk of mechubed kinasina to a kind of the wool. The first shearing of your sheep, you should give him. Ladun b'dinei charamim. Mem Lashem, Mem Lakayin, to judge in the dinim of Cherim. Cherim is another way of consecrating something, but if you use Lashon Cherim, depends the type of Lashon you use. Some of them go to the Eibishter, some go to the Kayin, they become their possessions, so there's a mitzvah basin to learn them, and the Paskin, these Nyanush Nemar, Ach Kol Cherim. Kuf Mem Vav, Lishchet, Behem Chai Va'oif, Bacha Yerchom Sarim. Shenamar, you have to specifically slaughter before you eat, whether it's a animal, or a bird, or cat, or livestock. Cattle. To cover the blood. And specifically by chayav oif, not by behema. When you spill the blood, you should cover it with earth. To send from the nest. First send away the mother as a button, take a only afterwards you can take the chicks or the eggs that are in this nest. The positive mitzvah, the mitzvah is to be able to be mafkin. Every person should know the difference between a behema toira, specifically this, another mitzvah, to know the kosher bird, and the birds, you have to know the names, you have to know all the inyanim. Because the Abish is telling you only the tar one, so Mela includes you have to know the dinim of what's tar, what's not. Which are specific types of grasshoppers, leida hatar min atame, to be able to differentiate from what's tame, what's impure, and what is tar. Shenamar shaloi kra'ayim, which are these two big hind legs that it uses to jump, spring off, and then fly with its wings. Kufran Beis lived with Simani Dagim to know the Simanim, the signs of a kosher fish. This is what you should from all that found itself in the water. Kufran Gimel Kadesh Chadash, to sanctify the new month. The last of Shanim, and to calculate the new year. The Chadashim Shanim Bebezdin Bilvad, only in Bezdin Hagadol. Shnamar B'Chodesh Hazelachem Rosh Chadashim. Now Kufran Dalad Lishbos B'Shabbos, to rest on Shabbos. Shnamar B'Yom Hashvi Tishbos. The Kadesh Shabbos, to sanctify Shabbos. Shnamar Zachas Yom Shabbos the Kachach. Chacham said the Kacher Ola Yain. But Minatayra is just Ba'amira. Kufnon Vav, Levar Chametz, to erase the traces of Chametz from our house, to be mashbis. Shenamar B'Yom Rishon Tashbisus Orm Batechem, and 11 from your homes. Kufnon Zayin Pazav Mitzvah L'Saver B'Tzias B'Sharim B'Layla Rishon Chagamatzis, to tell over the story of the Yitzias Mitzrayim, the Exodus. Shenamar B'Yigat L'Vincha B'Yom, you should tell your son on that day. Kufnon Ches Lechel Matzah B'Leil Zeh, to eat matzah on this night. Shenamar Ba'erev Toichlu Matzahs. Kufnon Test Lish Bois Barishon Shal Pesach, to be shoyvis, not to work and not to do malachas on the first day of Pesach. Shenamar Yom Rishon Mikra Kodesh Lish Bois Bashvi Bar and Shvi Shal Pesach. Shenamar Bashvi Mikra Kodesh Lish Bar Mikzir Sa'aymer Tishim Bar Bayim, to start counting from when you cut the carbon Aymer, which is the Orla to Zayin Nisan, after the first day of Pesach, and they bring the carbon omer from that day, from that night, start counting 49 days. To rest from Malach on the 50th day, which is going to be Shavuos. You should now pronounce it holy. Kuf Samach Gimel. On Rosh Hashanah. Before we spoke about blowing shofar, we're talking about Shnamar. Here we're talking about the mitzvah of Shvisa that every Yid has. Shnamar ba'echad l'chodesh yelachem Shabbos, and you should rest. Kuf Samach Dal Anes Basiri, to fast on the 10th day, which is on Yom Kippur. Shnamar ba'asal l'chodesh ta'anos, not you should pain yourself by not eating on Yom Kippur. Lish boys b'yom atzayin, not to do malacha on the day of the fast of Yom Kippur. Shnamar Shabbos Abbasin hulachem. Lish boys barishin shachag sukkos, to rest from work on the first day of Sukkot. Shnamar b'yom rishon mikra kodesh. Lish boys b'shmini shachag, to rest on the 8th day of the Yom Tov. Shnamar b'yom hashmini mikra kodesh. Kuf samaches leishav b'sukkah shevas yom, to live and to dwell in the sukkah for 7 days. Shnamar b'sukkah teishu shevas yom. Kuf samaches litol lulav, to take a lulav. Shnamar b'kach l'chem b'yom rishon pri eitz hadar, and kapos tomorrow, all of them. And this mitzvah Rambam learns they're all one mitzvah. They're all 4 parts of one mitzvah, as we know. That's why you only make the bracha when you're holding the asterisk together with them. And Rambam calls the mitzvah slul, like we say al natil slul. And he includes pri etzada, kapos, etc. Kuf ayin l'shmoya kol shofar b'Rosh Hashanah, to hear the kol shofar on Rosh Hashanah. Now yem through a yelachem. Kuf ayin alf lidin machzas shekel b'chol shanam, to give a machzas shekel every year. Shenamar v'zeh yitnu kol ha'over al pkud, when anyone reaches the age of being counted, which is Ben Asram Shana B'Mayla, has to give Machzah Shekel. Kovayim Beis, Lishmoya Mikol Navashia B'chol Dar, to hear from every prophet there is in every generation, Im Lo Yosef Lo Yigra, so long that he doesn't add or take away, diminish from the mitzvah Teresh. Nemar Elov Tishmon, you should listen to him, a Paza Mitzvah. Lemanais Melech, to appoint a king. Nemar Soyim Tasam Melech HaMelech, you should accept upon yourself and appoint upon yourself a king. Kufayin Dad l'shmoyim mikol bezin hagadol sheyandu lam Yisrael, to listen to the bezin hagadol shenemar bal mishpah sheyemrucha ta'aseh. It's referring to the Sanhedrin, specifically in the time that they're in the Beis HaMikdash. Kuf ayin hey linter zachar rabim, to tilt based on the majority, and to paskin and tiyah machlokes if there is if there's a dispute between Chavrei Sanhedrin, Badinim, and any other psak, you go according to the majority. That you bend based on the majority. To appoint judges and those that will implement what the judges say. Those are the police in every community. When they stand before you, to make sure they feel equal before you. In a just way, you should judge your friend. To testify in Beis, someone that does have what to testify. Who aid, whether he saw, etc. Kufayin Tesla is a mitzvah based on lachar edim harbe, to cross-examine the edim very thoroughly. Shenamar b'derashta v'chakarta v'shalta hating. Kuf pei lasis la'edim zayim kashadim lasis, when you have edim that they intended to have someone else, whatever it is, if they wanted to have him killed or they wanted to have him get lashes, that should be done to them. If 2 other people said that your story is definitely false because you were with us in a different place at that time. Shenamar v'sisim loy kashazamar, you should do to him as he intended to do. Larif is a egla k'mitzvasa, to behead the egla rufa if you found the person dead outside the city. Shenamar ba'arfu sham is a egla ba'nachal, in the Nachal Eis, in the stream, in a place near the place that wasn't worked, etc. Lahachin sheish are miklat, there should be 6 cities of refuge. Now we're talking about Haderech v'shlashtas as gvul atzcha. You should split into 3 from the boundaries of your land. Lasis Levim Arim L'Shabbos, to give the Levim cities in which to live. Gam hein kotas, and those the Arei HaLevim, they will also serve as cities of refuge. Shnamar Menasel Levim Arim Lasis Micah, person has to make on his roof. He has to make a fence. Shnamar or enclosure. Shnamar Vasisa Micah Legagecha for your roof. Kuf Behei La'abed Avodah Zarah. To annihilate, to break, to destroy any avodah zarah, and anything that's used for the avodah zarah or made for it, like an altar or the kelim that are used for avodah zarah. If an entire city was persuaded to serve avodah zarah, to kill the people of the city, and to burn the entire city, as a ir shnamar v'sarafta ba'esh esa ir la'abed shiva amam meretz Yisrael, to annihilate the 7 nations that live in Eretz Yisrael, that would put a person and that would pull the Yidden to serve avodah zarah. Shnamar hachrim tacharimim lahat kuf beches la'achar zayir shel Amalek, to annihilate the descendants of Amalek. Shnamar timcha zecher Amalek, to destroy their remembrance. And Kuf Pei Tes Lizker Masha Asa Amalek Tamid. Forever remember what Amalek tried to do to the Yidden. Shnemar Zachas Amalek. Kuf Tzadik. Last is B'Mechem Sarashus Kamishpat, when you're going out for a voluntary war, to do as the Torah said, Kamishpat HaKaz B'Torah Shnemar Kisikrav El Ir, which the Torah tells you to call out to peace, give them the opportunity, as we learned in Rambam and Hilchos Melachim just before, that this would apply even to the Shiva Amam, and you have to give them that possibility. Kuf Tzadik Aleph Limshech Koyin LaMilchama, to anoint the Koyin, that he's going to be the one announcing, reminding which soldiers will go back from the army, if they just got married or etc. The Kohen stands up. Lahaskin Yod b'machana, have to separate. They have to designate a specific place for people to go to the bathroom. Lahaskin Yosef. They should give a shovel for every soldier, so he should be able to dig and cover what he used with his bathroom. Now we're talking about midas between Adam and Chaber. Kuf Tzadik Dalet. Lahashav is a gazal. The person should give back return if he stole. Shnamar Heishes Exel. Lasher gazal. Litin Staka to give charity. Shnamar Pasoyach Tivtach Zidach. You should open your hand to give your friend. Lahanik Labed every to give Hanaka. When you set a Jewish slave free, you should give him a gift. Shnamar Hanik Tanikle. This applies also to a Jewish maidservant. Lahalbas Kuf Tzadik Zayin. Lahalbas Laani to lend to a poor person. Shnamar Kesef Talvas Ami as Ani to lend to poor people. We know that this time it says usually it means if, which means it's voluntary. Zeh ein rishos al mitzvah, it's a positive command. Shnemar behave tabiteno. You should take from him a mashkin, so we know that it's talking about a mitzvah, a positive mitzvah that's command. Lahalvas lanachri beribis, to lend the nachri specifically with interest. Shnemar lanachri tashich. Priya Shmuel Lamdu, Teresh Balpet taught us that this is a shazum mitzvah, so it's a positive command. Lahashiv mashkin ba'alav, to return in the time that he needs his what you took as collateral, to give it back. This mashkin shnemar hashiv tashiv le'yasavoit. So if he needs it by day, you give it back by day. Reish leiten schar sacher b'zmanai, to pay the wages of someone that was hired for you in his appropriate time. Remember b'yoma in his day. Titan schar should give him his payment. Reish alf lias sacher oichel b'zman schirusay. He is allowed, the day worker is allowed to eat in the time of his employment. Shnamar kisava b'kerem rechav, you're coming in the vineyard. Kisava b'kamas rechav, or you're coming to standing tvua by your friend. You're coming to harvest for him. Lazav me'al chaber emal behemte, to help unload a masa that fell or off your behema, your friend's behema, or for your friend's number. Also, tazav im, you should help him. Reish gimel lahakim a masa al behema, to help him reload afterwards. When you set it up properly, Shnamar hakim takim ima over his behema. Lahashav abed, to return the lost object. Shnamar hashav tishivim lachicha. Reish hey lachicha to rebuke sinner. Shnamar hachiach techiach samisecha. Love kol adam b'nei abris. You should love every yid. Shnamar haftar kamoicha. Love a sager is a specific additional mitzvah to love a convert. Shnamar haftar sager. Letzadik hamasnaim, to make sure that your scales and your measurements are correct. Imam mishkalos, with the measurements, these the stones that they would have would prescribe the weight of it. These weights. Shnamar moiznei tzedek avnei tzedek. L'chabed the chachamim, to respect the chachamim. Shnamar mipnei seva takom. L'chabed avim, to give respect for your father and mother. Shnamar kabed zvichov zamach liram avim, to fear your father and mother. Shnamar ish aviv imay v'aviv tiro, fear him lifres v'lirbois, to have children and to multiply. Shnamar pru revu, livel b'kiddushin, a person should only be together with a woman after kiddushin. And Shnamar ki yikach ish isha uba eleh. That after he does the kicha, which is the kiddush, and then he should be together with her. Reish yadal l'sameh chasan es ishtoi. He should have his wife be happy shana for a complete year. Shnamar naki yelabeis shana achas, for a complete year should be dedicated. Reish tezvav lamal saben, to circumcise the son. Shnamar b'yemash mini yimol psar lasai. He takes off the foreskin. Liyabim eishes ach, which is to marry his deceased brother. If his brother didn't have children before he passed on, to marry his wife. Shnamar yibama yav eleh lachloitz liyabim. If he doesn't want to marry his previous sister-in-law that his brother passed away without children, so he does the process called chalitza. V'cholza nalam al raglash, takes off the shoe from his foot. Lisa oines on asas is a positive mitzvah of person. He rapes a woman to make sure he marries her, so she shouldn't be lost without a wife. Shnamar v'loiti elisha, she should be his wife. Leishev moitzi shemra imishta kol yamav, if he tried to give her a bad name, try to be moitzi shemra, that she was nivel after erusin. So he has to remain married to her. Shenamar, as it says, v'loiti elisha, she should remain his wife. Lodun b'mefata, the dinim that a person should, the basin should judge the case of a person that lures a girl into relations. b'chamishim shekel im shardin of the 50 shekel knas that he gives her or to her father, and the rest of the dinim. Shenamar b'chifata ish. The Reish Chaf Aleph lasis yifas ter kakasa to do the yifas ter, which is a woman that he meets at war, and the Torah is matter, and to be together with her one time. Shenamar b'reisa b'shivya eishes yifas ter, to do the whole process. Legarish Reish Chaf Beis legarish b'shtar, to divorce specifically with a shtar gerish, and Shenamar b'kasa lo sefer Christos, that the sefer that's going to separate between them, but Nasim Yadi gives it in her hand. Reish Chaf Gim lasis la saita kid Torah to do to the saita as her Torah as the process should be. Shenamar b'asla akayin is called Torah the entire process. Reish Chav Daled lahalkas Rishayim, to give lashes to Rishayim that deserve it. Shnamar v'ipila shayfet v'iko pasim mitzvah bezin. Now lahaglas ritzeach, to have go to the city of refuge, or ritzeach b'shgaga, someone that killed unintentionally. Shnamar v'yashabah ad ma'is hakoyin. Reish Chav Vav li is based in hargim b'sayiv. There's the pasim mitzvah bezin should have this tool of killing by sword. Shnamar nakam yinakim, that refers to, we learned the Torah told us that nakam yinakim is referring to specifically saif with a sword. Li is based in hargim bechenek, in specific cases by strangulation. Shnamar ma'isumas anoya v'anoy afas by Eish. Li is based in surfing by Eish in specific cases. Shnamar by Eish yisrav oisay b'shen, burn them in fire. Like Aaron Dachas, and Reish Chav Tes Li is based in Cyclum Avanim. They stone with stones. Shnamar b'skaltam oisa. Reish Lamed Litla is Mishnah Schayt Liya, to hang those that need to be hung. Shnamar Talisa Oisa Leitz, and then there's the Loisa say Loisal Nivlasa beyond the time. Reish Lamed Alf Likbar Hanerek b'Yomai, to bury the person that you hung in that day. Shnamar cover Tigbarana b'Yomahu. It's also referring to a regular person that has to be buried within as soon as possible on a day, preferably. Lodun be'Eved Ibri Kil Chaysav, to know the dinim and process the dinim of an Eved Ibri. Shnamar Kisikna Eved Ibri should be done in its proper way. Liyayidam Ivri, a special mitzvah for the owner that buys a Jewish maidservant, that she should be he should be meshadach her either to himself or to his son. Shnamar Ashalo Ya'ada Vim Libna Ya'adena. He should appoint her for his son. Leave those Amavriya to help an Amavriya get out before her time. Shnamar Behefta. Lavar David Knan Lo'il is a positive mitzvah to have a Goisha slave stay forever. Even though he's makabel certain mitzvahs, right? He's like Gertoshim and he's toivel already, etc. But he should remain in his avos forever. Shnamar Lo'il behem tavodu. Reish Lamed Vavli is a chayvel mishalmam, and someone that the damages should pay money. Shnamar v'chiyirivun anashim v'hika, etc. You're hitting another person. It should be evaluated in cash, in money. Or as we'll see, Reish Lamed Zayin Lodum Niske Behema, to judge in cases of behema damage. Remember, he gave Shar Ish as Shureu, and Reish Lamed Ches Lodum Beniske a Bar, to judge the dinim of the damage done by a bar. Person left it open. Shnamar Chiyiftach Ish Bar. Reish Lamed Tes Lodum Begana V'Tashlumin of Misa. We're talking about to judge a person that stole. In many cases, tashlumin, and with the knas to pay back what he stole, and something to dal v'hei if it's a shavaseh or a kefil, and in certain cases, misa shenamar ki yignav im b'machteres v'goyim b'shum chorei. It's chayav misa if we're choished that he came to kill as well. Reish mem lodun b'niska hever, which is if his behemoth went around and started eating in someone else's field. Shenamar ki yavish sadoi kerem. To judge the dinim of fire, which the person lit fire. These are the Adal Davas Nezikin. He lit in his property and went out and burned elsewhere. And it reached thorns and caught fire and went on. The dinim of the Dal Shemrim, person committed to safekeep for free without taking payment. He gave money or kalim. Person that's taking money to guard, or a soicher, a person that rented. These two have the same din and same level of responsibility. A person that rented and he's gaining, he's paying for it, and the same, there's a two-way benefit, as well as a case that a person's a paid watchman. If someone borrows, we're calling each one has different dinim. The dinim of buying and selling and exactly how it's done. It shouldn't be done with the ribis, etc. And the dinim of a person that he demands that he comes and claims that his friend owes him money, and koifer is someone that denies such a claim. Reish mem shenamar al kol dvar pesha, any iniquity. Reish mem zayin lahatzel near the fulfill of nefesh already. If someone's chasing someone else to kill him, you should save the person that's being chased, even if it's going to be at the expense of the life of the person chasing. Shenamar b'katzos kappa. Reish mem ches lodum b'dinin necholos, to judge the dinim of inheritance and the land that's going to be inherited. Shenamar ish ki yamos ubein ein lev. It doesn't have a hoysel b'nei Yisrael. These are the Mitzvos Asei of the Rambam.
Shkoyach.